Okay, so it's coil pottery time. So I'm going to show you how to make a coil pot. I'm going to simplify this a little bit for those of you who are virtual so that you can do this at home to the best of your ability. So I'm sending home another piece of clay, and you should have already your scoring tool from earlier. And if not, find an old gift card, an old hotel key, an old stiff piece of plastic that you can cut and turn into a scoring tool. And to see the video for that, you can actually go to our previous ceramics unit. And there is a how to make your own tools video. So you can go back and search for that. Otherwise, just get this out from earlier. When we did the ceramic tile, we made some tools, so that should be on that. I also sent home some of these tools. These are pretty handy, so you can use those. I have some great ceramic tools that I can use for cutting. I don't think I sent these home. So in your case, you might need to find something like an old butter knife that you can cut clay with. Otherwise, any tools that you can find that will get the job done. Ceramics is all about being resourceful. So find things that do the jobs that you need it to do, and then make sure to clean them off afterwards because they'll have clay dust. You'll also need some slip. So I took a cup of water and took a very small piece of dried clay. If you don't have dried clay, just pinch off a little piece of clay from your block. You can put that in. You can even let it dry a little bit because the dry clay breaks down faster than the wet clay does in water, and turns into slip a little faster. So you could leave this out for like an hour or two. It'll probably get pretty dry. And then you just add little bits of dry clay to your water, and that's slip. So that's really easy to make. You can make that with just any cup at home. You'll need a brush of some sort that you can brush slip on with. Any brush will do. And you'll need your clay. So find a good workspace for you that works for you. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a base. If you have a rolling pin of some sort, you can use a rolling pin to do this first part. Hopefully this doesn't shake my computer off of its stand because it's really rigged up. I'm going to just kind of press out my clay. And I want to press it out and flip it a couple of times until it's about a 1/4 inch thick. Think about the thickness of like a pencil. That's how thick it is. If you have a rolling pin, you could roll this out. Otherwise, you can do the pizza toss where you kind of like slam it against the table at an angle until it's about this thick. So you just want to pat it out until it's about as thick and as even as you can get it. Okay, so I've got my flat slab of clay. I've kind of pounded it out, made it a little bit thinner. In class, we're using rolling pins and guide sticks, but this is something you can use to do anything with. So now we're gonna cut a circle out of this for our base of our coil pot. And you can find anything circular that's like maybe 4 inches across, 4 to 5 inches wide of a circle. So for instance, I found this flower pot. So I'm gonna take this flower pot, put it down on top of my, just placing it. I'm not cutting this out with the flower pot. I'm just tracing it. I'm going to take my butter knife and I'm going to cut. I'm going to use this flower pot to trace a circle. I'm going to cut a circle for my base. So I'm creating a slab base for my coil pottery. So can kind of smooth that out, any rough spots. That's my coil base. Okay, so now I've got this extra clay here. What I'm going to do with it is I'm going to make as much of a coil pot as possible. So you're not going to get a refill on clay, which means you build it until you run out of clay. So it might be a 3-inch tall coil pot, or it might be a 6-inch tall coil pot. You just use up all the coiling until you get to a good spot. So this is how to wedge. This is the duck method, where you're going to use this part of your hand, like sort of across, to push the clay and compress it. Compressing the clay or wedging the clay. Make sure that if there's any air pockets in here, that those air pockets get squished and compressed together. That way the clay is really consistent and it will fire evenly in the kiln. Uneven firing can lead to cracks and explosions. We don't want that to happen. So you got to wedge your clay when you're done. You kind of put your scraps together, and you want to start new with this clay. You got to wedge it. So I'm going to take the base right here of my hands. I'm going to push, and then I'm going to press it with the rest of my hands in and pull. Push, press, pull. So I'm pushing, pressing, and pulling up. Pushing, pressing, and pulling up. And you just kind of repeat that. If you can do this about 20 times, you have probably wedged your clay. So 20 to 25 times is usually plenty. This is called the duck method because if you do this, it kind of looks like a duck. That is the extent of that name. So you can do this. The other method of wedging, which you may be familiar with, is just slam it against the table. I'm doing this over the table leg, so it's got a little bit more pressure when it's hitting. But this will compress if you kind of rotate the clay and toss it down and compress the clay from all sides. So that'll work too. So let's say you've done that and you're ready to hide this little bar right here. Let's say you're ready to roll out some coils here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off a chunk, maybe like this is like a golf ball size amount of clay. I'm going to roll it between my hands to get it started. And if you feel it kind of moving from a cylinder to more of like a block, just kind of roll softer. Just try to let the coil just kind of roll between your hands. And then on your table, you're going to roll and work your hands from the center out. Now, I'm not pressing very hard. Sometimes your clay will square up a little bit. All I'm doing is I'm starting at the thickest parts and I'm working my way out and I'm letting the table do a lot of the work. I'm really just rolling. I'm not putting pressure on this coil. Pencil thickness is a good thickness to aim for. So you can see there's my coil of clay, about the same thickness as like my pinky, or a pencil, which I don't have handy. You can kind of compare and contrast. This is like a tiny bit thicker than a pencil, but pretty close. So don't go thinner than pencil thickness. That would be a good place to stop. So now that I have my coil, what I'm going to do is use my scoring tool, and I'm going to score by making a rough surface around the edge of my base. This is where I'm going to build up my coils, like so. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take my coil here. I'm going to run that along the length of my coil to score that side. Then I'm going to put a little bit of slip on my scored edge here. And I'm going to press my coil in. This is an interesting angle to work at. I'm going to press my coil in, loop it around. When I get to the end, if it's too long, I'm just going to pinch that off, set that aside. I can use it for my next row. And I need to actually press that coil in. If you don't press it in, it's not going to stick. I'm going to kind of run my finger over some of these scoring marks. And I'm also going to, on the side, I'm going to go ahead and smooth out any scoring marks that I see left over, just to get rid of that mess. And you could spend more time on that if you want. And then I'm going to repeat. I'm just going to keep taking a golf ball size amount of clay, rolling it out on the table, and stacking. So you're going to do this for 3 coils. And actually, I like to just kind of roll out a bunch of coils right here at the beginning. So this really doesn't take a lot of materials, as long as you have a cup that you can have some slip and some kind of tool. And you might use like a plastic fork. That would work to score. A fork is really good because it has 4 tines, so that you'll make like lots of marks. Or you could just use like something like this and just make lots of little marks for your scoring. It just takes a little longer if you're going to use like something that only has a single point. Okay, so now I've got all these coils here, and I'm going to keep adding. So I'm going to score. And I'm going to score my coil. And I'm going to add some clay or some slip. And I'm going to end this video after 3 coils. I'm going to end this step by connecting these really solidly inside the coil pot. Just keep adding my slip. I'm just stacking my coils. I'm slipping and scoring. I'm adding my next coil. Like that. Pressing it in. Make sure to actually press it in. Okay, and then my next step, now that I've got this, is I want to make sure that this foundation, this is my base of my coil. So I want to make sure that the foundation for my coil pot is very strong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently smooth out the inside coils. And I'm not trying to necessarily get rid of all of those coil lines. I'm just trying to smooth it out a little bit. One thing I'm not doing is I'm not changing how thick the coils are. I'm just kind of taking the very top bit of clay, smoothing it out so that they're really well connected. So you can see that. I just want to make sure that everything is just all one smooth surface inside. So I'm just kind of using the remaining slip. I'm also getting rid of some of those scoring marks. Now you could do this more. There's more smoothing that you could do. You could make it so smooth that you don't even see the coil lines. So there's just trying to get rid of those marks there. So you can see now that they're kind of smoothed out. But since you guys are on your own, the danger is if you pinch the walls and make them thinner, then you're making your piece more fragile. So when you're smoothing out the inside, all I want you to be doing is just kind of taking the very topmost clay and kind of smoothing it out and filling in the gaps and the cracks and the dips in between the coils. But I don't want you to make those coils any thinner. So I maintained the same thickness here. I didn't pinch at all. I was just smoothing that out so that those pieces are just really well connected. And after these first 3, you don't have to do that anymore unless you just like doing that. It's going to be up to you. But this just kind of makes sure that that base for your pottery is just really well connected. So this is the start of your piece. I'm going to pause this video here and let you just get started with this part. And then once you get finished with this part, you'll wrap it up. If you're going to take a little break in between, always make sure to wrap up any extra clay. Make sure you keep your extra clay wrapped in plastic because this is what you got to work with. It's got to stay plastic and workable for a few days while you are building this. If you're doing this all in one sitting, that's fine. But I would actually keep this wrapped in plastic even if you're just doing this all in one sitting just to keep this from drying out too much. And I would also keep this wrapped in plastic. I like a good Kroger bag. So I take a Kroger bag or just a Ziploc bag will work too. And I wrap this up so that way there's not much air in here. So if you need to take a break, please do this. I'll be back in another video and I'm going to show you how to do some crazy decorative techniques. All right.